So for the fourth installment, this is going to be a long one because we're going to go over the Japanese reels and tapes. Now what's interesting here, and that's really the first time I've really thought about this, when you survey the incredible amount of different Japanese reels and tapes that were made, it's kind of amazing. They far outnumber anything that was done by the rest of the world combined. It's really amazing when you look back at it. I never really thought about it until this survey. But let's start with the beginning. In the beginning, you know, all the companies kind of copied the Scotch, right? They all had a 150 or a 100 tape. This is a TDK Synchro tape, and they had the same kind of reel. It's almost exact to the dimension of the Scotch reel. And it's not just TDK that did that. Here's National. Here's the National, which is Panasonic. They did the same thing, same reel design. Fuji had the same reel design as the rest of them at the beginning. And how about that? Even Maxell had the same reel design. Look at that, Maxell. There's two designs. This is design 1 with a 3-window reel. That's kind of rare. And then here's another design, which is almost the same as the Scotch design, almost identical in the dimensions. So Maxell did the same thing. And guess what? It's not just Maxell. It's also Sony. Sony also had the same design reel. Sorry if I put that over here. This was actually used in all their professional tapes to the end of their production. They had the same 3-window reel, same look and design as the Scotch reel. So somehow that design was chosen because Scotch at the time was the ubiquitous manufacturer. Everyone was copying them, and that's what they all used. But really shortly thereafter, really in the late 60s, they made a change. They all brought out new designs, and they're all kind of similar. They all brought out designs with no windows and the single thread. So here's a TDK Synchro tape. This is one of the early TDK reel designs. This is a later National reel design. It kind of looks like 3 windows, but there's a single thread in this one. Here's a Toshiba reel, same kind of idea, single thread. A lot of these manufacturers of equipment, they all wanted to have their own reel design, but they also copied each other. And a lot of them private labeled tape that was made by TDK or Maxell or somebody else. But here it is. Here's a Techniques reel design. This is a single window, believe it or not. There's plastic in here, so there's only a single window on each side. That's another interesting one. Here's an AIWA reel, same kind of idea with a single thread. That's 2-window design. Here's the classic TIAC. You see a lot of these. These were available not only in the single thread, but also in a large hub version. Here's the first generation of the National with the single thread. They were also found with reels of tape, the National brand. They just rebranded the TDK tape, either the S series or the Super Dynamic. Here's an old Hitachi reel with a single thread. That's also one of the originals. Those are also rare on the ground. So they did that a lot. You know, it's kind of interesting to see that there's also a rare Sony reel I found with a single thread. Kind of cool with a Sony tape logo on it. We sell a couple of these. They're very rare on the ground, and they came in this old design box. Sometimes you'll see some of those. So again, kind of interesting how they went in that design. It was basically all the manufacturers. And I have a couple of them here, some interesting things here. We have Toshiba tapes. Here's another Toshiba with the 3-window with this box. We also have another sound tape. This is a little bit later on. The Toshiba had a single reel. Actually, it looks the same as the TDK reel that is kind of common, but with their logo stamped on it. They probably private labeled the tape. A couple of interesting things about Maxell and Hitachi. You know, Maxell and Hitachi are the same company, and so Hitachi would bring out their own versions of the Maxell tape. Here's one of them with a large hub. They had their own design reel, even though they had the same tape as Maxell. That's an early large hub Hitachi. There's an early large hub Maxell, which you don't see on the ground too much, in a clear reel. Those are kind of rare. That was also done at the beginning. Later on, you know, they went, here's another Maxell tape with this box, actually has the 3-window reel in it. And here's another one, Maxell Standard. This is kind of rare. This is where they use the latest packaging. In Japan, you could get the standard tape into the 70s. And again, you know, the reason why on our website we graded the tapes, you know, standard tape, low noise, high output, and +3 low noise, high output, is that there's really the different types of tapes for those grades. And for many years, the manufacturers made those different tapes in those grades. And they call them as such. They called Maxell low noise, Maxell ultra dynamic, low noise, high output, and of course, Maxell standard. If you take a look at the tape, the way it looks just like a Scotch 150, not polished, would be abrasive to your heads. But this is the last generation, and it came with that last Maxell single thread reel that was popular through the early 80s. Let's look at a couple of other interesting Maxell tapes while we're here. These are XL2 large hub reels. I want to just show the different reel designs that you don't really get to see because these really weren't sold very often in the West. This is the Maxell single thread design, which was popular through the 80s. When they redesigned their reel to the 2-window reel, most people don't realize they also did that to the large hub reels. And these large hub reels kind of look really nice with the 2 windows. So that's pretty good there. A couple of other interesting things on the Sony side. You know, we saw that Sony single thread reel. They also had this Sony Matic reel, which is kind of this reel designed for automatic threading, which is interesting because they also sold a Maxell version of that, of auto thread reel, which was also branded under Realistic. And Maxell never really sold it, but Realistic did. But it was originally a Maxell product in Japan. It's kind of interesting. For the Sony 2-window reels, this is a rare one because it's available in plain clear plastic. You only saw this on some pre-recorded tapes and on their PRA series, which was never released here. Let's look at some interesting reels from Akai. You know, Akai was famous. They also rebranded the tape, but a lot of their older machines came with this classic 6-window reel. It's a beautiful reel. I mean, there's so many different reel designs from Japan. I'm sure I only have about half of them. Another reel design from Akai came later on with this 2-window reel. I haven't seen many. That was only on that last Japanese lot. That's the first time I saw it. And of course, many of you that have Akai machines have this classic 1-piece 3-window reel that is also available from us as an empty reel. But they also had their line of tapes. We discovered that they private labeled both TDK and Fuji tapes during their time. So I'm not sure exactly what you always get, but occasionally we get them. They weren't that popular, but they're available sometimes. Couple of other interesting reels to look at. This is a standard Japanese kind of generic 3-window reel. You see this in a lot of different generic tapes. I've actually never seen it attached to a brand though, so I'm wondering who made that reel. I don't know the answer to that question. There's a company that's pretty rare on the ground for reel-to-reel tapes, and that's Denon. And they also had their own reels. They have their really own classic 2-window reel design. At this time, kind of at the end of tape production in the late 70s and 80s, all the manufacturers, they kind of went to 2-window shaded reels. Remember I was explaining how at the first they started with the copycats of the Scotch, and then they went to those clear single threads, and they went to some dark single threads. Then they went to dark 2-window reels. And there's the Denon version. From there, after that, interesting are the Fuji versions, because Fuji had a line of tapes and their reels were like this. This was their first standard hub, kind of looks like this. And from that, they also had a large hub version of that. And then originally they would print out the labels and stick them onto the tape series, onto the reel. Naturally, with cost cutting, they stopped that. This is their large hub version of their later reels, which kind of looks like the other large hub tapes from TDK or Scotch or Maxell. And here's their large hub reel, the later generation small hub reel with 2 windows. Just a couple of other points. We have this company called Magnax, which is kind of an anomaly because what they did, they have some very sophisticated packaging. Like this is this nice packaging with the reel, and the reel would go into a really kind of sophisticated box with kind of this modern 80s design. These were actually rebranded Ampex tapes. The MLN was the ELN, but they had their own really sophisticated reels. This is the Magnax reel, really nice reel. The reel was actually made in Japan. And they also did the same for the large tapes. When I have a video on the large tapes, I can show them. But you know, for these tapes, for the Grandmaster, they called it Grandmaster. They actually had their own metal reels, and they were a standard design from the United States, actually. But for my last part of this, what I want to go is all the metal reel designs, because one of the things I mentioned in my previous videos is how much the Japanese love this stuff and how their middle class had a lot of money. And they spent a lot of money on their tapes and reels. And there's really no other place in the world that they did that. And so there's a whole box of really cool metal reels that I have here, and I want to show them to you kind of in order. The first one is a TDK metal reel. They also made these beautiful large hub metal reels. I've seen these from TDK and from Akai, and I think one other manufacturer, but I just have a TDK here. Here's another TDK reel, which is a 3-window reel. They're beautiful reels, beautiful to use and to look at. Here's a very rare Akai reel. This is the Master 77 reel, and it's available in 2 sides. The one side is painted for the black tape decks, and the other side is a silver version. Very rare on the ground. I'm not sure I'm going to sell this one. This is in perfect condition. It shows you how much they love their stuff. This was the other Akai reel that was designed for the Akai GX77. It's the 8-window reel. This is a rare version with the EE tape on it. Again, this was designed for the GX77. Really only available in Japan. Unfortunately, I have a bunch of these reels, but unfortunately they corrode easy on the edges, and it's very hard to find one in perfect condition. Another classic, this is an old classic Akai reel, where you have on one side you have the Akai in the metal, and on the back you have these multiple windows. Kind of a beautiful reel. This one is a little bit bent, so it just stays in my collection, but I want to show it to you. This was also a popular design from Akai, this metal reel. You know, all these metal reels, you know, if you take a look at how they're made, you know, they have a plastic insert, they have the metal platters, and they have these raised metal discs on top of it. These are 5-piece reels with 3 screws, so it's really, really expensively made. Fuji also brought out their own metal reel. This is their 3-window reel, kind of a cool looking reel. It kind of matches their unique 3-window reel that they designed for 10-inch reels. So they're not very common. I have some of those. TIAC also made their reels. This is one of their 3-window reel with the single thread. These are also hard to find in good condition because they're very thin and they bend very easy. So if you get them, you know, you have to kind of bend it back yourself. We have a ton of these that are in bent form. You know, I don't really like to sell them that way because people complain, but maybe I will. I have a lot of these that came in bent, but that's par for the course. Here's another rare reel. This is the 1st generation Pioneer metal reel in 3-window. Later on, they had that 6-window reel that was designed for their 701 and 707 series. I don't have one here for this video. I just have this old Pioneer reel to show that it's one of the old classics. Now, last but not least, we have a lot of interesting Sony reels. Sony, again, they had a fascinating design with their reels. They had these classic 12-window reels. This is a black one. This is really pretty in my opinion. They came in many colors. I've seen them in red, in gold, in silver, and in black. I have a bunch of black in stock and a couple of silver in stock. Here's a silver one. There's also a one-piece one. This is a little bit different. You know, you see this design has 5 pieces. This one has 3 pieces, where you have just the full metal platter and the insert. Just to round that out, a couple of reels just to show you. We have some Scotch brand reels. These were sold in Japan and made in Japan. We have some other reels just for laughs. There's a gold reel. This is from a German design. You see this in AIWA and in BASF. And last but not least, kind of as a straggler at the end, we have this old 3-window ferrograph design. This was designed in England. And it's kind of an interesting reel design. It's kind of pretty, but they're also rare on the ground as ferrograph. You know, they didn't make a lot of machines, and they're well known in England. But that's rounds out all the metal reels and tapes and reels from Japan. So if you have any questions, you know, give me a shout. Some of these are available on the website. Some of them are not. If there's something you really like and you can't find it, you can always shoot me a message, and I can see if I can get it for you. This is Gene Bohensky, Reel to Reel Warehouse. It's been a lot of fun looking at all these reels with you. Have a good one.